Week 17 in the National Football League. So you're telling me it's all come down to this? A lot of big games. Nobody really has clinched all that much in the AFC. In the NFC, it's really down to 2 spots. Should get pretty damn interesting, to say the least. I don't know if I recall a more nuttier, fascinating Week 17 in the National Football League than the one we're about to embark upon this upcoming weekend. Should be a ton of fun. Bart Scott can't wait. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 125th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Lot to get to on this pod. I've been pushing this thing back since Monday. It's supposed to be Monday. Then it was going to be Tuesday. Now it's Wednesday, and here we are. I thought Wednesday was the perfect day to do this because kind of gives us a good opportunity. We're not that far removed from Week 16 that we can't talk about it still. And we're getting close enough now. This is the first day of practice of the week for all of these teams. So now we're starting to get into that Week 17 feel. We've had all of the news, everybody that's going to be out and indefinitely or definitely not playing in this final game. We've kind of gotten that news already, like in Los Angeles for the Rams. Jared Goff had surgery on his thumb. Remember, he broke his thumb against the Seahawks in Week 16 in that massive showdown that won the Seahawks the division. He's going to be out in Week 17. Cooper Kupp has COVID-19. He's going to be out. So you kind of know you're seeing some of those things kind of fall into place. Teams that don't need anything, i.e. Kansas City, already said Patrick Mahomes going to be out in week number 17. Chad, don't blame it on the Henny, is going to get the start. So you're seeing all of this kind of come into focus. Kyler Murray going to give it a go. Obviously, Arizona Cardinals playoff hopes on the line. He has to go. There is no tomorrow for this team if they don't win, and they still need help. Need a Chicago Bears loss to go along with an Arizona Cardinals win. So he's going to give it a go in Arizona more likely than not this week. And you'll hear more of those things like in San Francisco, Trent Williams and one more of their players out in Week 17 with an injury. You're getting to that point. Matthew Stafford more likely not going to play. He sprained his ankle on Saturday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so what's the point of him playing in this game? Honestly, I mean, what are we doing here? I think we've seen potentially, I still don't buy it 100% that we've seen the last of Matthew Stafford in Detroit, but it wouldn't shock me if we've seen him play his last down. We'll see what happens with that situation, but they're kind of trying to figure out if he's going to play this week. Why does he need to play this week? It doesn't make any sense. So a lot of that information is coming out. We'll see what happens with some of these teams. But what I want to do first is just to kind of set the table for today's show is I want to start the show with a gym dropping session. You know how we do. And that gym dropping session will essentially be us talking Week 16, recapping all those games. I'm not going to get into in-depth breakdown of those games. I just want to talk about one big takeaway from each team in those ball games. And then we'll move on to social media maneuvers where I essentially allow you guys to kind of take over the program. If you're out there, thank you so much for joining me on this Wednesday afternoon here on the Louie T Network podcast. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, super chats are the way to do it. But if you just want to have your comment read, if you want to have your voice heard, if it is pertinent, use the hashtag LouieTLive, and we'll see if we can get you up here, talk about whatever it is you want to comment on. And during that process, I want to talk about Week 17. And all of the playoff scenarios that could take place and who we ultimately think is going to win. And we'll finish up with some garbage time. And I'm going to give you a couple of my selections for Sunday. I don't have all of them ready for you right now, but there are a few games that do stick out. And I do want to give some analysis on those games and ultimately what I think is going to transpire. So without any further ado, let's get to the show today. And you know how we start here. The Louie T Network podcast. Of course, I'm talking about with a good old-fashioned gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. Get you thinking up here, man, in your cabeza. So, week 16 in the National Football League has come and gone, and it was a massive week. A lot of teams had the ability to clinch. Teams had chances to really position themselves to make the postseason. A lot of people failed. A lot of teams failed. In week 16, did not get it done. We've talked about the Friday game already, Vikings and Saints on Christmas. We've already talked about the 3 Saturday contests. I've done a video for all 4 of those games, the Friday game and all 3 of the Saturday games. So we don't need to go over those again, but quickly to recap, the Vikings Saints win 52-33, eliminate the Vikings from playoff contention with that win. Do the Saints, and they put themselves in a position to lock up the 2 seed in the NFC. With the Saturday games, Bucks 47-7 over the Lions. It was a mercy kill in the first half, 34-0 at halftime, 47-7 is your final. Buccaneers lock up a playoff spot essentially with that win, and now are in the postseason for the first time since 2007. May have seen the last of Matthew Stafford. We talked about that on the video. 20-12 upset of Saturday belongs to the San Francisco 49ers. NFC West family business. 49ers handled some on the road against Arizona. It was not pretty for the Cardinals. They had every opportunity to win this game, and they just didn't get it done. And so now they had controlled the outcome of their season. If they just won, they were in. Now they need to win in week 17 and need a Bears loss. Why? Because the Bears took care of business versus Jacksonville on the road. We'll talk about that here in a second. Dolphins Raiders, that was a crazy finish to that game. What a good game that was. 2 teams vying for a playoff spot in the AFC. Raiders a little bit further out than the Dolphins coming into the game. Had to have this one to have any chance. They lost this football game on a last-second field goal as the Dolphins prevailed 26-25 and put themselves in a position where they win and they're in versus Buffalo in week 17. Meanwhile, the Raiders are done for 2020 in terms of the postseason. So now we head to Sunday in week 16. I want to talk about some games real quick. Let's start with Falcons-Chiefs. 17-14, Chiefs win the game. This was a lot closer than any of us thought, especially without Julio. No Julio Jones in this game again. And Calvin Ridley stepped up, made plays, gave him a shot. And, you know, it's amazing that this Falcons team just finds ways to lose. But I'll give you my one takeaway for the Chiefs and then my one takeaway for the Falcons. My one takeaway for the Chiefs is that they're not invincible. They're not the same Chiefs team that we saw last year that would put up 40 on anybody at any time, anywhere. They're not that same team, but in the same breath, they're more capable on the defensive side of the football this time around. Last year, they were very vulnerable on that side, and the offense had no choice but to score 40 if they wanted to win. This year, they're capable of winning games like this. I don't know if they would have won this game last year. They didn't win these types of games last year, 17-14. This is a little bit different than what we've seen from them in the past. This is what they're capable of this year, but it also means that they're not invincible. They're very beatable. They run into the wrong team in the postseason, they could get got. Can the Kansas City Chiefs still think that all roads to the Super Bowl out of the AFC go through Arrowhead? However, it's not this foregone conclusion that we once thought it was, say 3 or 4 weeks ago. For the Falcons, it's just, this is the same story. We just see it in different ways. Like, it's the same movie. It's the same cast of characters, but the ending is just slightly different. You know, how we get to the ending is different, I should say. The ending is always the same. The Falcons find a way to lose. And they showed a great stat, and I brought this up already, but I'll bring it up once more. The Chiefs were 7-0 in games decided by 1 score or less, 6 points or less. The Falcons, on the other hand, were 0-6 coming into this game. They're now 0-7. The Chiefs are now 8-0. And that's the difference between a Super Bowl contender and a team that's the number 1 seed in their conference and a team that's on the outside of the playoff picture by a long shot looking in. And, you know, they have a Pro Bowl kicker, all right, and he misses a kick from 39 yards out to tie this game up. That's the Falcons season in a nutshell. Chiefs win. Clinch the number 1 seed. Hence, Patrick Mahomes is able to sit out in week 17. Jets, Browns. This was a weird game going in. The Browns had a bunch of their receivers out due to COVID. you knew they were in a tough spot. I still thought they would be able to find a way to win. Thought they'd be able to run it better. Thought they'd be able to throw it to their tight ends and their running backs out of the backfield. I thought they'd be able to manufacture more offense than they did. I was wrong. And let's start with the Jets real quick. This team, they haven't quit. That's the thing I got to say. And maybe Greg Williams was the problem. Who knows? I mean, Adam Gase is a terrible head coach, and he needs to be fired at the season's end. And I think that's still going to take place. However, they've won now 2 in a row. You know, after thinking that this team was going to go 0-16, they've now rattled off 3 straight, if I'm not mistaken. Beat the... No, they won 2 in a row, because they've ensured, let me make sure. Yeah, 2 in a row. They've ensured that Jacksonville gets the number 1 pick, because even if they finish tied at 2-14, say Jacksonville miraculously wins in week 17, they both finish at 2-14 if the Jets lost in week 17, and they would still remain where they are. Jags 1, Jets 2. So they've clinched essentially the number 1 and number 2 pick. That can't change. Jags are 1, Jets are 2. They've rattled off 2 straight wins after starting the season 0-13. We thought they were destined for 0-16. They fired Greg Williams, and magically they've won 2 straight. And they got a little bit of help along the way. I mean, obviously the Browns situation made it a lot easier for them to come away with the victory, but they still had to go out and get it. And earlier in this season, they wouldn't have won this game. Despite all of the challenges that faced the Browns coming into this game, they still would have lost this game. But they jumped on top of them 20-3, and they held on for dear life and won this thing 23-16. They have not quit on Adam Gase. That's the big takeaway for me from this Jets football team, is that they're not as bad as we think, even though I think they're still lacking for talent, but they're not as bad as we think. And they've shown some mental toughness because they haven't packed it in. And then the Browns... disappointing loss. You still got to find a way to win this game. You still got to find a way to win this game. And when it's all said and done, they may find themselves on the outside looking in, depending on how week 17 goes, what the Steelers decide to do with their starters. Do they rest them? Do they play them? It's interesting because if the Steelers decide we need the momentum, we haven't been playing well. We should have lost last week, but we battled back and won. We can't take a week off. We're not in that position. We got to continue the momentum of last week's win with another one here going into the postseason, and they play all of their guys. The Browns could end up being on the outside looking in, because the Colts are going to win, the Titans are going to win, and the Ravens are going to win. So if you are the Cleveland Browns, you got no choice but to go guns a-blazing. All you got, all the ammo you got, load it up and fire, because if you don't get it done in week 17, you probably are the odd man out. We don't know what's going to happen with Buffalo and how they view the 2 seed versus the 3 seed, but they could take out the Dolphins and the Dolphins be the odd team out. But if I'm the Browns, I mean, just 2 weeks ago, we were sitting here talking about this is a different Browns team and, you know, this, that, and the third. And now here we are looking at this Browns team saying, you may not make the postseason again. So we'll see what happens. Biggest takeaway is you got to find a way to win that game. I know with some really tough circumstances, you got to find a way to win, and they didn't. They're now 10-5 are these Browns, and again, going to be tough. You're at Pittsburgh in week 17. If you're the Browns, that's going to be a toughie, honestly speaking. Or you're home for the Steelers, excuse me. It's going to be a toughie. They're not going to lay down. I think they're going to play their starters. We'll see what happens in that football game. Speaking of Steelers, what a win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was a massive come-from-behind victory for Pittsburgh. 28-24, the Steelers win this football game. They were down big in this game. At one point, they were down 23-7 were the Steelers in this game. And somehow, 24-7. Somehow they rally to come from behind and win. In Indianapolis, the biggest key for me, the one takeaway for the Steelers is that they're not dead. Like everyone pronounced them dead. They're not dead, and they're talented, and they've got a shot. If they can figure some things out, I still think this offense is broken. They're going to have to lean on their defense, and I don't know if their defense is what it was earlier due to injuries and guys that won't be back. I don't know if this defense will be what it was earlier in the season. It's still a quality defense. I don't think it's elite anymore. That being said, the defense is capable of going as far as the offense is willing to help them take this team. I don't think this defense, at one point, I thought this defense was capable of carrying this team if need be. You know, the injury to Bud Dupree and some of the other guys that have been banged up. Spillane has been out. They just got Vince Williams back last week, and that helped. But I thought the Colts did some really good things to them on the offensive side of the football for about 3 quarters in this football game. So I'm not convinced that this Steelers defense is capable of carrying this team any longer. However, they're good enough that if the offense chips in and does their part, that they could end up in the AFC Championship game. Don't sleep on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not dead yet. That's what this game represented for me. However, there's still trouble in the Steel City. But for as far as Indianapolis is concerned, this one stings because you belong in the postseason. Your defense is one of the better defenses, not just in the AFC, but in the entire National Football League. You belong in the postseason, but it's a loss like this. It's a loss in week 1 to Jacksonville. It's losses like those that you look at, and whether you qualify for the postseason or not, you're going to look back and say, that's why we didn't get in. You can't lose those types of games. Jacksonville has 1 win, and they got it from you in week 1. You got to win this football game if you're Indianapolis. You played too well for 3 quarters to allow the Steelers to come back and take this one from you, but you weren't able to put them away, and now you find yourself fighting for your playoff lives at 10-5. We'll see what happens there. But this is a good Indianapolis Colts team, and they may be on the outside looking in. Bears, Jags, this was an all-out assault on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. That's not my move. You know, a lot of you, that's your go-to move. For me, it's not. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think teams try to tank. I don't think staffs try to tank. I don't think organizations try to tank. I don't think that's what they do. However, if I've ever seen anybody close to looking as if they were tanking, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. The way that they've handled their quarterback situation this season, to me, screams of we wanted no parts of winning. Because we all know Gardner Minshew gives them the best chance to win. And they refused to play Gardner Minshew after he got injured earlier this season. And they put back in Mike Glennon. And I'm like, yo, what the hell, man? Seriously, what are we doing? Don't ask me. I don't know. But they've locked up the number 1 seed, have the Jags. That's the biggest takeaway from them, is that they've locked up the number 1 seed in the 2021 NFL draft. You got what you wanted. You're going to get Trevor Lawrence. Let's see what you do with it. I can't think of a worse place for Trevor Lawrence to go, to be honest with you. You know, we sat here and we killed, you know, the Jets, and oh my God, that's a train wreck of an organization. That's a nightmare, a match in pairing for Trevor Lawrence. But guess what? It still was New York. It still was one of the biggest, you know, media markets in the NFL. You're now going to Jacksonville, where they care more about college football than they do the NFL. Maybe he will breathe a life into this organization that we once thought, man, they might even move to London. So I don't like this spot for him, but, you know, he might make Jacksonville relevant again. We'll see. And I say again, very loosely, you know, there was that stretch there in the late 2000s. You know, when it was like 2007, 2008, you know, Fred Taylor, 2005, maybe mid-2000s to late 2000s. You know, Fred Taylor, that defense with Jacksonville, Rasheed Mathis and John Henderson and, you know, all of those guys, they actually were good. You know, David Garrard, they had some stuff, man. They weren't terrible. They're in the playoffs just about every year. Maybe they can get back to that. We'll see. Anyway, Bears. Utter destruction in this game. They're on a mission, man. And all they got to do now, with the help of the 49ers, they knew what they had to do going in, because the 49ers took care of business on Saturday afternoon, beating the Cardinals, which put the Bears essentially in the driver's seat. You got everything you could ask for. Now you don't have to worry about anybody else doing anything for you. You just got to win. They've gotten hot with Mitchell Trubisky being reinserted into the lineup here of late. And now they're scoring points out the wazoo. Remember, this was a team that was offensively challenged just a month ago. We watched them on a Monday night against Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings, where they simply couldn't score. They couldn't even get a first down in the second half of that game. It was pathetic. And they lose to Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. And we sat here and I went off on a rant, and I talked about how everybody needed to go. And I'm sick of watching this Bears offense. There's no creativity. There's no this. There's no that. You should be playing Mitchell Trubisky. Well, They put Mitchell in, and this offense has had a massive resurgence. There's been a tremendous uptick in production. They're scoring 30 plus every week now. They put up 41 this week. And I'm here to tell you that this defense we already knew was good enough. That was never the problem. It's always been this offense. Well, now the offense has joined the party, and the Bears are all of a sudden, if they get in, a dangerous team. And as we've talked about with the NFC, anybody is capable of beating anybody in that conference. This is not the AFC. Okay? The 7 seed is more than capable of knocking off the 2 seed in the NFC. So, this Bears team, if they get in, and it's no guarantee, they've got Green Bay at home, Week 17. Packers have already locked up the number 1 seed. I believe they've already locked that up. I heard some things that they could potentially not get the number 1 seed. How is that even possible? Where they own the tiebreaker over the, and let's go to the I need to go to the standings real quick. They own the tiebreaker over New Orleans, so New Orleans can't catch them, and I don't think anybody else is even within shouting distance. So let's see if I can make some sense of this real quick, and figure this thing out. So, see, Green Bay is, well, Seattle is 11-4 as well. All right, that's what I didn't take into consideration. I think New Orleans can't, but Seattle can somehow leapfrog, and let's see if we can find out how that would be. Conference-wise, they would both be 9-3 if Seattle takes care of business and Green Bay doesn't. I don't know. I guess it would then go to common opponents. I don't know what the common opponents between them are and what the records are, but I heard there's still a scenario in which Seattle could end up with the number 1 seed. So Green Bay's going to have to play if they want the number 1 seed. Obviously, they do want the number 1 seed. So I would assume that they're going to play their guys and they're going to look to win that football game. And yeah, nobody's clinched the number 1 seed. So it's going to be tough. You're going to have to beat the Packers at the crib. They would much rather be playing Minnesota or Detroit this week. That's for damn sure with these Bears. But they're not. They're playing Green Bay, and we'll see what they do. But they're hot right now. This is not the same Bears team the Packers saw the first time when they ran it up on them in Lambeau on a Sunday night about a month ago. This is a totally different Bears outfit from the last time these two teams met. Giants, Ravens 27, Giants 13. The Ravens, as I told you guys 7 weeks ago when they were struggling, they're going to win out and they're going to make it to the playoffs. And they got everything they needed and then some. They got a bunch of help, as a matter of fact. They could have been on the outside looking in after that miraculous comeback by the Dolphins. They could have been on the outside looking in after Sunday's standings and finishes. But they got help not only from the Steelers, who of all places, right? A family member helping out a fellow family member, which is a sworn enemy at the same time. But they get help from the Steelers, knocking off the Colts. But also, they get help from the Jets, knocking off the Browns. And so they're in the driver's seat. They're in. All they got to do is win. And they got Cincinnati in Week 17. They're going to take care of business. They jumped on this Giants team early and often. My one takeaway is that this offense is almost back to where it was at the beginning of this season when they were a feared unit. I still worry about this defense at times, even though I think this defense flies around, they create turnovers, and they're well coached. I think the offense is the key to this football team. I don't necessarily have it. If the defense is just steady, like we expect them to be, they'll be fine. The offense is what's going to take this team where they want to go. And in the playoffs, when they've struggled, it's been because the offense hasn't played well enough. So, for me, the offense is starting to look like it did earlier in the season. And I felt like they took their foot off the gas pedal a little bit in this game against the Giants. I thought they could have scored 30 or 40 if they wanted to, but they didn't need to. And so I'm starting to see this offense get back to what it once was. They're running the football. They were without a bunch of guys in this game, but they didn't need them. That's how you know this offense is clicking. Lamar Jackson is playing well. He's running around. He's making plays. The receivers are chipping in. The tight ends are chipping in. I think they're starting to get back to where they need to be. And this is not a slouch defensively in the Giants, and they were able to make it look relatively easy on the offensive end. So that's my one takeaway for Baltimore. For the Giants, my biggest takeaway is nobody wants to see this team in the playoffs. The NFL doesn't want to see it. fans don't want to see it. Their offense is anemic. Doesn't matter who's under center. Daniel Jones, Colt McCoy. This offense is a joke. And so the NFL is begging for Dallas to beat them. The NFL wants Dallas in the playoffs. They really do. When it's all said and done, they would love to see Dallas versus Tampa Bay in Wild Card Weekend. As a matter of fact, they'd put that thing on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. They would be salivating, licking their chops at an opportunity to get Brady versus the Cowboys, America's team. That's what they want, probably more likely than not. Will they get it? We'll see. But I know the worst case scenario for the NFL is that the Giants somehow backdoor their way in at 6-10. It's not going to happen. They're just not good enough offensively. They stink. And that's my biggest takeaway. They just can't score enough points to be a factor, not only next week against Dallas in Week 17, but even if they were somehow able to get into the postseason, their offense is just putrid. It is just hard to watch at times. They just don't have it offensively right now. You go on to Cincinnati at the Texans, the Bengals at the Texans. This was an entertaining game, and you get the J.J. Watt speech out of it, and honestly, my takeaway from the Texans side of things is that it's the J.J. Watt speech. Like, this team has talent, and you saw it in this game. All their big guys stepped up. David Johnson stepped up, had a big game. Brandon Cook stepped up, had a big game. Deshaun Watson, like I said, if he were playing for a better team, he'd be in the MVP discussion. He's playing that well. A lot of people haven't. Matter of fact, I just want to read you his stats for the season, as I don't think a lot of people understand just how well Deshaun Watson is actually playing this year. But, when you're losing and you're not playing well, this is what happens. You kind of just fade to black. But Deshaun Watson is completing 70.1% of his passes this season. He's got 4,458 yards passing this year. Let me repeat that. 4,458 yards passing. He's averaging over 325 yards per game. 30 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions for Deshaun Watson this season. He's got a quarterback rating of 112.1. Just so you understand what he's doing this year. The guy's playing out of his mind, and if he weren't on a team that's 4-11 right now, he'd be right squarely in the center of our MVP discussion. But because he's playing for a bad Texans football team that was pretty much dead on arrival with the schedule that was handed to them before the season started, he's not in the discussion. But just know that Deshaun Watson, and it's funny because I get Washington fans, I trade 3 first round picks. They're not giving Deshaun Watson up. They don't care how many first-round picks you offer them. They're not giving away Deshaun Watson. It's the hardest position to find, and they've got a bona fide superstar in Deshaun Watson on their team. They're not giving him up. So my biggest takeaway was the J.J. Watt speech about continuing to fight. This team continued to fight. They didn't win, but they continued to fight. Cincinnati, my biggest takeaway was the play of Brandon Allen. I liked him when he was in Jacksonville for that brief spell, and he was playing ball there, and then I think he went to Denver, and he played some ball for the Broncos. If I recall, at some point last year, I think he was with Denver, and he played well. I was like, man, this Brandon Allen kid, man, he's got a little something to him. And here he is again, playing some quality ball. We laughed at, the Bengals situation with the NC State kid and how he was running, less of a thrower, more of a runner last week. Well, Brandon Allen can actually throw it, man. And he did some really good things in this football game. I was impressed. And the Bengals, I don't know what's going to become of Zach Taylor. I don't think he's going to be fired. I told you guys that before. But after this little flurry down the stretch, in which Cincinnati beats Pittsburgh and now they win here, I think he's fighting for his job, and he's doing a hell of a job doing that. We'll see what happens. There was so much turmoil with this organization, even before the injury to Joe Burrow. There's so much turmoil. There was the SI story about the culture and in that locker room and in that organization. And, there were so many things swirling around. And then the Joe Burrow injury kind of brought everything to the forefront. And there was so much finger pointing going on. And this coach needs to be fired. And that guy needs to be fired. And the GM needs to be fired. Well, here they are. And I know it's 4-10-1, but my biggest takeaway is that they're fighting for their coach. Brandon Allen played his ass off. And they're fighting for their coach. I don't know if they're actually fighting for him or not, but it seems like it. And they're playing well. They get the win 37-31 over the Texans. Broncos, Chargers, another team fighting for their coach. is this Chargers football team. You know, it's funny. I was talking to one of my guys, Craig, massive Chargers fan, and he's like, hey, if you didn't see the Bills on Monday night, hashtag go get Brian Daboll, offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. And he was telling Tom Telesco, their GM, to go get Brian Daboll. And I'm like, you sure y'all firing your head coach? I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. They've won now 3 in a row after that 45-0 ass thrashing at the hands of the Patriots. And it looked like, man, doesn't look good for Anthony Lynn. He's going to get canned. They've now run off 3 straight. And I get it. The 3 wins have come against teams that are less than ideal. But that they're, you know, in between the Falcons and the Broncos is a win at Vegas against a team needing to win to get into the playoffs. So this Chargers team playing a lot better football of late. They're winners of 3 straight. I know there are a lot of people that are ready to move on from Anthony Lynn. Not so fast. I'm just saying my biggest takeaway is that they continue to fight for Anthony Lynn. On the other side, I got the same takeaway for the Denver Broncos. It's not pretty. And you know what? I'm going to switch my one takeaway. Jerry Jeudy has issues catching the ball. That's my biggest takeaway for the Denver Broncos. They had a chance late in this ball game to, at worst, tie it up at 19 with a late field goal. Quarterback Drew Lock throws a beautiful deep ball down the field to Jerry Jeudy, and Jeudy just drops the football. And he's had the case of the dropsies all season long. It was one of the things that I mentioned in passing when he was coming out of Alabama, like, hey, there are some concentration drops. I just wanted to mention that. He doesn't really drop it all that often, but, you know, there was the LSU drop that I talked about. He did come back and make up for it on 4th down with the big catch to get the touchdown. But I said, there was a drop against Auburn. I'm like, there are some concentration drops, just so we are clear that he didn't have A1 hands necessarily, but, you know, he should be fine. Well, he hasn't been fine this year. He's dropped it a bunch. And that you don't get much bigger in a spot like that than the drop he had down the field. Either way, sounds like Vic Fangio is going to get another shot, which I am so in favor of and happy to hear. But it's another tough, heartbreaking loss for the Denver Broncos, who are now 5-10 on the season. They're going to need Jerry Jeudy to get his shit together next year. It's 1 year. He's a rookie. Shit happens. I'm just looking for him to be better next year. The guy's way too talented to have this be an issue moving forward. Cowboys and Eagles. Man, this game did not go the way that I thought it was going to go. As a matter of fact, I was so shocked at the way that this game ended because of the way it began. The Eagles jumped out on top of Dallas 14-3. They were in command of this game. I said, this Cowboys defense stinks. They're going to get run out of the building. And then something happened. Don't ask me what. I really can't put my finger on it. Even going back and watching the game, I'm still at a loss as to what happened, what changed in the game to have Dallas essentially go off on a run, 17-3 run to end the first half to finish up 20-17, and then take it a step further and score 20 unanswered, including the field goal or the touchdown that they got before the half to take the lead at 20-17, and then pile on top it's to get to the second half and score 17 more points. So I guess it's 24 unanswered points. I take that back. 24 unanswered points to finish this thing up and win 37-17. They were dominant in this game with the Dallas Cowboys, especially on the offensive side of the football. They're starting to click, and that's where I want to start. Is my one big takeaway from Dallas is that this is the offense that we thought we were going to see. I didn't really care if it was Dak or if it was Andy Dalton. Andy's a more than capable backup. He's the best backup in the league this season. And this is what I thought they were going to get out of him when they signed him. And if he had to play, I didn't think he would have to play. Dallas didn't think he was going to have to play because Dak doesn't get hurt. Or at least he didn't coming into the season. Well, he did this year. And I said, well, that was money well spent. You got Andy Dalton. He's going to step in. This offense won't miss a beat. You got too much talent. The offensive line woes showed up. They proved to be too much to overcome. The lack of consistency with the play calling and the rushing attempts, that was a problem. But when you look at the skill positions, when you look at Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield, when you look at what they've gotten out of Dalton Schultz in the absence of their tight end that went down early in the season, when you look at their receivers, Gallup and Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, when you look at all the talent that they're able to put on the field, there aren't many teams that should be able to match up with this Cowboys offense, and the Eagles simply weren't. They went after the Jaquette cornerback, and they just baptized him. Wherever he was, that's where they threw the football. My one takeaway for Dallas is that if they get in, they're going to be a tough out from an offensive standpoint. I've still got questions about their defense, but even that side of the ball is starting to play with a little bit of confidence. If you're the Eagles, my one takeaway there is that you simply just don't have enough continuity at this point of the season with Hurts just coming in from an offensive standpoint. There's still some things you're ironing out. You got some injuries on the defense that really put you in some compromising situations. You're still a good football team from a talent perspective, but this isn't the team that you thought you would be fielding at this point. And I'll take it a step further. This isn't the unit that you thought would be leading you at the end of the season with a chance to win the division. There are a lot of changes that are going to be made in the offseason. Carson Wentz may be one of them. And so my biggest takeaway is that they just didn't have enough time to get this group of players to gel and mesh together. You just got Deshaun Jackson back for the 13th time this season. Alshon Jeffrey just came back like a month ago. And then you inserted Jalen, Hurts, who wasn't taking the first team reps but to begin with. And now you're starting to incorporate all of these different guys that are just getting back. It's just tough when you're on the run with a rookie quarterback that had no offseason and you're thrusting him into this situation. It's tough. And I look at this football team and I see the defense and I say the defense is quality, but you got some guys missing. McLeod at the safety position and at the cornerback position, you got some injuries. I don't know if you're good enough on the back end to get it done either, but offensively, you just didn't have enough time to gel and mesh. That's my big takeaway for the Eagles. They lose that game 37-17 and are now eliminated from playoff contention. Cowboys are right in the heat of the NFC East race. We go to the next game. It's Carolina and Washington. 20-13 victory for the Panthers. I'm going to just tell you, I'm brutally honest with you, really shocked by the way that this game unfolded. I knew Carolina was going to compete. I knew they were going to be a rough, tough, and rugged team, that they were going to give us a run for our money. What I didn't expect was for Washington to spot them 20 points in this game. Didn't think they would come out and be as sloppy as they were with the handles. Didn't expect Dwayne Haskins to throw up all over himself the way that he did. I fell for the banana in the tailpipe, but luckily that's the final time I'll fall for the banana in the tailpipe with Dwayne Haskins. I thought that the coaching staff let Washington down in this game as well. They should have pulled Dwayne no worse than at halftime. They allowed the carnage to continue to ensue into the fourth quarter before pulling the string on him. And I thought that the offensive coordinator, who has actually been really good contrary to popular belief this season, Scott Turner, I thought he went away from the run way too early in this football game, especially when you got a guy like Dwayne in there that didn't have any business trying to put this team on his shoulders. It turned into a mess. But they battled, they scratched, as they've done all season long, and made this thing interesting. My one takeaway from Carolina is that they're well coached. I love Matt Rule. And I told you when they hired him, give him 2 years. This team's going to be competing for a playoff spot. Give them 3 years, and they're going to be competing for the division. And I see it. And if they get a quarterback, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to take them where they want to go, but they did sign him to a 3-year deal. They may not be looking for an upgrade at the quarterback position. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I think they should be. We'll see where they end up. This win doesn't do them any favors in that department because they went from a top 10 pick at around number 7 to now on the outside at like 11 or 12 with this win. So I think that Carolina is not in a great position. I think they are outside the top 10. They may still be in the top 10 with the win, but I can tell you this much. They're well coached. Say whatever you want. They may not have the most talent. They're a young team. They're playing a bunch of young players. They got talent. I mean, they're well coached. And they're going to miss Joe Brady because I think he's getting a job. I think he's going to be a head coach next year. That's going to suck because Joe Brady is special. And it's unfortunate when you don't get to spend as much time with a coordinator that you think is great as you would like to, because I think he's going to be one and done in Carolina. But Matt Rule is exceptional. He changes things wherever he goes, and I think he's going to do the same thing in Carolina. That's my one takeaway there. Washington's one takeaway is that this was disappointing, that they didn't execute, and you can't beat yourself. And they've done that too many times this season. And they turned it over 4 times that you'll find on the stat sheet. But if you watch the game, it was 6 turnovers because they had 2 fourth down turnovers on downs. So 6 turnovers get you beat in any NFL game. I don't care how many you get back. And they forced 3 turnovers of their own in this game. It doesn't matter when you turn it over 6 times. So Too many mistakes. They can't win this game, and they don't. And so now they're fighting for their postseason lives as they will be featured on Sunday Night Football in the regular season finale. Game 256 will culminate the 2020 season as these Washington football team players will travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles for the right to call themselves NFC East champions. You get to the next game on the docket, and it was Rams and Seahawks. Man, this game couldn't have gone any uglier for the Los Angeles Rams, and they were in this thing. And I really felt like it was a really bad interception thrown by Jared Goff that changed everything. I want to say the score at the time of that interception might have been 9-6, and they had all the momentum in the game. And they're inside the Seahawks 15-yard line. Don't ask me what the hell Jared Goff was doing on this play. Even Troy Aikman said, I really don't know what he was doing there, Joe. You know, he like Joe's looking for an explanation, and Troy's like, I don't really have anything for you. Like, that's as bad as it gets. Like, it was a stupid decision. He's got a running back going up the field, and he tries to put some touch over the lineman, the defensive, I think it was a linebacker actually, tried to put a little bit of touch over that guy. That ball took off on him, it sailed, and it went right to a defensive back who picked it off. It couldn't have come at a worse time. You know, worst thing with this game, it was all field goals. It was 3-3, then it was 6-6, and then it was, 9-6. And then you throw that interception. You would have been up 12-6 in a game where neither team looked like they were in a position to score a touchdown. With your defense, the way that they've been playing all season long, you might have won that game, 12-9. And you throw that boneheaded interception, it changed everything. My biggest takeaway for the Seahawks is that their defense is better. Earlier in the season, they wouldn't have been able to go toe-to-toe with anybody defensively, especially the Rams, who are one of the best defenses in the league. They wouldn't have been able to do this earlier. And I don't care that it's family business. They weren't able to do this. They weren't able to do it against Arizona earlier in the season. They weren't even able to do it against the Rams, who aren't, an offensive juggernaut by any stretch of the imagination. And the Rams were able to score on them the first time these two teams met. They struggled defensively earlier, but they've gotten their shit together. And they're better. They're a Super Bowl contending team again. For a while there, when Russ was on this MVP chase, we were looking at Seattle as the team in the NFC to beat. And then, Russ kind of hit a little bit of a rough patch. His defense, we realized, was awful. And we're like, no way. They're not winning anything with the way that they play defense. Now, all of a sudden, Russ has settled down. He's not playing the way he was playing earlier in the season when we considered him the MVP, the runaway favorite. But he's managing things. They're not making the mistakes that they were making, but more importantly, this defense is playing well. And Seattle, to me, they're as good as anybody in the NFC right now. My big takeaway for the Rams is that this was a costly loss. You lose the division, that's number one. Now you got to go on the road, and that could be, New Orleans. That could be the same Seattle Seahawks team. We'll see where you end up, because you're not going to get the 5 seed more likely than not, because that's going to belong to Tampa Bay. So even if you're saying, well, let's try to get that NFC East winner, that's out of the question. You're either going to Green Bay, New Orleans, or Seattle. Good luck, you're going to need it. And oh, by the way, your quarterback, Jared Goff, broke his thumb, so he's not playing in Week 17. And Cooper Kupp's in the COVID-19 protocol list, so he's out in Week 17 against Arizona. So you're probably not going to win that game. Doesn't matter. You're pretty much stuck where you are at this point. Whether you're 6 or 7, you probably don't really give a shit. At the end of the day, that's a costly loss. You lose the division, you lose your quarterback, and you just don't feel good about what you've done now, having lost to the Jets and now the Seahawks in consecutive weeks. Didn't look good against the Jets. Your offense was anemic in this game. You're going into the playoffs limping, essentially, is what you're doing if you're the Rams. So this is a costly loss. That's my biggest takeaway from the game for the Rams. Titans, Packers, we talked about that on Sunday Night Football, so I don't really need to rehash that. Two good football teams. The Packers just reign supreme in a snow game. The Titans, they'll be fine. They can bounce back next week, win the division with a win over the Texans, and I surmise that they're going to do exactly that. And then the Monday Night Bills dominating the Patriots 38-9. We talked about that already as well. So with that, let's get to a couple of super chats. I think I saw a couple of super chats before we move on. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and move on to our social media maneuvers. All right, since we're already heading there anyway, might as well just go there now and see if we have some super chats to take care of, and we do, and I want to knock these out first. Key Smith, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Key Smith writes, hashtag lunch with Louie. Watch the football team go into the playoffs, man. I hope you're right. I hope you are right. It feels like a game we should be able to win, but I thought the same thing, last week against Carolina in a similar situation. Is Alex Smith going to play? Isn't he going to play? It doesn't sound very promising if you listen to Ron Rivera. And I felt the same way about Taylor Heineke that I did Dwayne going in. Hey, Taylor showed me enough to make me feel comfortable that if he has to play, he can play well and get us the win. And Dwayne, you saw what he did. So, it's a big spot to put a guy that has never really been in a spot like this at this level before in the game and just expect him. There was nothing to lose when he came in last week. We're down 20-6. If we come back and win, you're a folk hero. If we lose a game, we were supposed to lose because Dwayne played so poorly and you came in and essentially got mop-up duty. He was in a win-win situation. There was nothing he could do other than come in and throw up all over himself to make us feel any worse about this situation. So he played well. Is he going to do that with a clean slate, a week full of reps, and the other team prepping for him and all of this weight of the season, the entire 2020 season, the weight rests on his shoulders? Do you trust Scott Turner to call a game that alleviates some of that pressure? Because I don't. I think Scott Turner says, I had this guy in Minnesota. I had this guy with me in Carolina. He knows my playbook, so I can run whatever the hell I want to run. So I just don't know. We'll see. I think we're going to have a shot. I feel good about that. So we'll see what happens. Thank you for the super chat, Keith Smith. Got another super chat. This one is from the Phillies Ace 34. Greatly appreciate you, the Phillies Ace 34, who writes, hey, Louie, what's good? I hope my Eagles lay down for Washington franchise so y'all can experience a Cousins like that moment. So be grateful. I would like you guys to lay down, but I talked to a Panthers fan last week that wanted to lay down for us, and they didn't. Fans can want to lay down, but that team isn't going to lay down. Their defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, has already said, no hats rule this week. That's in full effect. Nobody's putting on any division caps or shirts or any of that shit in Link. Not on our watch. If we not the ones putting on the division champ caps in our crib, then nobody's putting them on. So they're going to come out juiced. It's Sunday Night Football. That's extra added motivations. They're probably going to put on the black unis. I expect them to come out looking to whoop some ass. So it's not going to be easy by any stretch. And if we don't come out and play our best brand of ball, we're going to get our asses handed to us. So not particularly looking forward to it. I'm not going to lie to you. Anyway, let's get to some of your comments, and then we'll move on to garbage time, and we'll wrap this thing up. So John Perez, thank you for the comment. John writes, wow, Lou, can't believe it's almost over for some of these teams. Got to enjoy it while we can, because it's going to be a long 7 months before we get back to football after the Super Bowl. It happens so quick every single year. It's amazing. I remember it like it was yesterday when the Chiefs and Texans kicked off the season and Andy Reid had the, foggy face shield and it was a rainy, wet, nasty game, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire burst onto the scene, and you're like, man, the Texans might not, David Johnson looked good in that game. Texans might not be that bad. Maybe old Billy O knew something and got some value here. And now we've come full circle. It's week 17. The Texans are 4-11. The Chiefs are 14-1. And wow, the season's over that quick. So enjoy it, as you mentioned, while you can, because it's going to be gone here shortly. Jonathan Hankey writes, damn, Louie, my Colts' chances to make the playoffs looking pretty grim right now. It is, but look, we've seen stranger things. This is 2020. So anything can happen. And, for as bad as you feel right now, I'm going to give you some hope here in a little bit when we get to garbage time. You stick around for that, Jonathan. Asan Moore says, man, this game is tough for me because it feels like, it's good that we can beat these Eagles because of a lot of injuries, but then if we run the ball, we can succeed. What do you think? There's a lot of things, I think, and I'm going to give you all of that stuff during the Washington Football Nightly program this week. Today and tomorrow night. We'll be live tonight for Washington Football Nightly at 8:30 p.m., so check that out. And we will be back on Thursday to wrap all of this stuff up. And I'll give you my predictions as to what I think is going to transpire this season. But I can tell you this much. There's a lot of different factors going into this game that are hard to really predict. That is for sure. J Mart, who writes, win or lose, does TH, Taylor Heineke, have a future in Washington? Hard to say, because obviously if he plays well, that heightens his chances of being back next year. I think we can all agree on that, right? If he wins us this division and he plays well, you'd assume that he'd be back next year. Maybe Kyle Allen is back, and maybe they move on from Alex Smith with his injury history and how much money they owe him, and maybe they move on. But they keep the two young guys that have been in this system for a couple of years, and maybe they draft a young, and that's how I would prefer to approach it. But if he regurgitates all over himself, if he goes out and this moment is way too big for him, and he throws 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and we lose to the Eagles 23-13, then why would you want him back? I mean, this is his opportunity. He's got to seize it. So I think that he's got a chance to prove that he belongs in Washington. We'll see. Asan Moore, for a team to have 11 wins and come this far and not make it will be sad. It's not sad. It's reality. It's the harsh reality of this league. And it's a year-to-year league. Last year, 10 wins would have gotten you in either conference. This year, 11 might not get you in one of them. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. Got to win enough games. No one's going to feel sad for Indianapolis. You lost to Jacksonville. That's their only win this season. Nobody's going to feel bad for you. It'd be one thing if Indianapolis' 4 losses have come against Kansas City, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and, Tennessee once. But, and as a matter of fact, 3 of those losses are against those teams. But unfortunately, one of those other 2 losses is to the Jaguars. Nobody feels bad for you. You got to beat the Jaguars. Just certain things you have to be able to do. Jonathan Hankey says, also, Happy New Year's, Lou. Hope you and your family have a wonderful New Year's. Let's hope 2021 will be a better year for all of us. I couldn't have said it any better myself, Jonathan. Thank you so much for the well wishes. Happy New Year's to you and yours. Hopefully you bring it in the right way. And as you mentioned, and I couldn't have said it any better myself, we all pray that 2021 has a much better outlook for all of us as people, not necessarily individually, because I'm not going to lie to you. 2020 individually for me was actually a really good year. A lot of goals got accomplished in 2020 for me on a personal level, but as a man, as a country, as a society, 2020 was brutal, absolutely brutal. And I'm hoping that 2021 allows us to get back to some level of normalcy, because we all need it desperately. Asan Moore, for a team to have, we already talked about that. He also writes, would you be fine if Taylor Heineke started? Yeah, I would be. I don't have any problems with him. I'd love to see him have a great week of practice. Sound like he is going to be taking the bulk of the reps this week, and hopefully he plays well. We'll see. Got another comment here from John Perez, who writes, Jacksonville is a great place for sunshine. It's also going to be a top coaching job this offseason, and they have the money to spend. He'll make them relevant quickly. You heard it here first. I don't doubt any of that stuff. Jacksonville always seems to have money on which is hard for me to fathom, but they've always seemed to got money, have money under the books, or on the books, and this will be, because of the circumstances now, this will be a massive opportunity for whomever the Jaguars are looking to attract. Joe Brady, to me, would make a perfect combination with Trevor Lawrence. Being able to use a lot of the things he used at Clemson successfully. And Brady just has this innate ability to kind of figure out what his quarterback does well, and then tailor a game plan around it, and a system around what that guy does to maximize his abilities. I think it'd be a match made in heaven, honestly. If obviously if Cincinnati is interested, that may be where he wants to go because of his familiarity with Joe Burrow. But it's going to be a great job, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that it's Jacksonville. It's not New York. It's not L.A. It's not one of these prestigious places to go and play ball. It's Jacksonville. Like, how excited can you get for Jacksonville? It's hard. Every year Jacksonville plays over in London. Why? Because nobody cares about Jacksonville here in the States. Yeah, he's going to bring a level of excitement to Jacksonville that we haven't seen in maybe ever. Maybe not since the Mark Brunell days when they were in the AFC Championship game. Maybe that's the case, but it's still Jacksonville. If you gave people in that region of the country an opportunity to go watch the biggest cocktail party in the world, which is Georgia, Florida, which is played in Jacksonville every year, or a chance to go see Trevor Lawrence take on, Patrick Mahomes in a game, they're going to pick the damn college football game. And that's essentially what I'm getting to, is that even though he's going to move the needle, they still don't give a shit about Jacksonville Jaguars football in Jacksonville, and that's the sad part about it. But I digress. Zachary Managoba says, thoughts about what to do with Landon Collins, assuming Cam Curl is a starter. They'll find somewhere for Cam Curl to play, but Landon Collins is the starter. We can't assume that they're not sitting down Landon Collins. This is essentially what I'm telling you. They're paying him too much money. He's a leader on this team. They like his skill set. They'll find somewhere for Cam Curl to play on the field. Even if they got to move Landon around, but they'll find a way to get both of those guys on the field, I think, in some capacity. Kevin, the PRF. Biggest surprise for me the past 2 weeks is the Rams crashing back to earth. I think that's the biggest surprise. We sat here, Kev, 2-3 weeks ago, and we talked about, hey, right now in the NFC, who's the team you don't want to see? And I think we all agreed. I can't speak for you. I don't like doing that. I said that I don't want any parts of the Rams. Even though I'm not scared of their offense, man, that's a ferocious defense. And so I sat here and I told you that the Rams may be the most complete team in the NFC. Well, how'd that go over the last 2 weeks? And so I'm just as surprised as you are. That's been a massive surprise the last 2 weeks. I got a super chat here, so I'm gonna take that real quick from my man, the Phillies Ace 34. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, the Phillies Ace 34. Greatly appreciate you. The Phillies Ace 34 writes, Louie, it's funny. All destinies come down in Philly. It's amazing that the season is ending in Philadelphia with a chance to clinch. And we started the season with Philadelphia. We're going to end the season with Philadelphia. Last time we clinched the division, coincidentally enough, it was in Philadelphia back in 2015. I think we did it on Christmas Eve in Week 16 of 2015 on the road at the Link. And so it's amazing that it kind of comes full circle again. I'm not looking forward to it, as I've mentioned before, but it'd be pretty sweet to do it against the Eagles in Philadelphia after the way they've tormented us the last few years. The Giants have theirs coming to them, but the Eagles were due this year. They were the team that was up. We swept the Cowboys after years of being tormented by them. I think we need to do the same thing to the Eagles, and it'd be just a little cherry on top of this ice cream sundae to be able to say, oh, and we won the division too by sweeping the Eagles. So we'll see what happens, but I don't like the spot. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I do not like this spot at all. Zachary Managoba says, since you normally do a live stream for the Sunday night game and Washington game, will you just do one show on Sunday or two? Yeah, it's going to be one show. It'll be Sunday Night Football overtime. It'll be the last in that series. So there will be no Washington overtime. It'll just be Sunday Night Football overtime. And so that's how that works when the two interject. If Washington plays on Thursday, there is no Washington overtime. It's just Thursday Night Football overtime because Washington's playing on Thursday night. Same thing on Sunday night. It will be Sunday Night Football overtime for the last time in 2020. So just one live stream to answer your question. Kevin the PRF would love for the Cowboys to win and watch Washington win, hopefully. It will be like beating Dallas 3 times. That would be incredible. Now, first of all, if we can't go, I do want it to be Dallas. I hate the fact that, but I told you, I'm rooting for whomever wins this division to win a playoff game. And I know the Giants aren't winning a damn thing if they get in. Not a single thing. So I know this is crazy and a lot of Washington fans don't want to hear this. But if we don't get in, I want it to be Dallas because I know they're capable of winning a game. Now, they're not capable of winning much more than that. But they're capable of winning a game. And I would like to see them get in and do some damage if it's not us. So, but, on the flip side of that, I would love for them to win, have a shot, get all excited, and then have us crush those hopes. And I don't want to just crush it, at the last second. I want to crush it immediately. Like at halftime, I want it to be 24-3. And I want us to cruise to a 30-6 victory. It's not going to happen. Because that's not who we've been all season long. But I'd love to just crush their spirits. Just like you said. 3, it'd be so epic. We've been going so long without sweeping the Cowboys. To beat them 3 times in 1 year would just be so poetic justice-like. But I don't know. I've said this many a times. We don't get to have nice things. So we'll see. Maybe things are changing. Ron's here. Maybe, we get to have nice things now, but doesn't seem like we get to have nice things. So we'll see what happens. Jarrett Fromm, thank you for the super chat. Or thank you for the comment, excuse me. He writes, how likely do you think it is that Heineke will start Sunday? I would put it at greater than 50-50. I already told you, I think Alex Smith isn't going to be able to play this week. I told you that I don't think Terry's going to be able to play this week. I'm a little bit more concerned about Terry than I am Alex because Alex was really close to playing last week, whereas Terry wasn't at all close to playing last week, and I don't think he's going to play this week. But if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say it's 60-40 right now, Heineke over Smith. But that could close. Obviously, Alex didn't practice today. It's Wednesday. When you're banged up, you don't practice on Wednesday. That's not a big deal. You're just installing on Wednesday. He can take the mental reps and be fine. Tomorrow is the big day for Alex. If he doesn't practice tomorrow or it's a limited basis, then you should be concerned. He needs to practice in some capacity, though. Limited, full, doesn't really matter. Needs to be one of them. If there's no practice for Alex on Thursday, you can go ahead and pretty much say this guy's not going to play. I would assume that he'll be at worst limited tomorrow, if not full tomorrow, and then Friday will be the kind of swing day, so to speak. I'd put it at 60-40 right now. Heineke starts. That's where I'm at with mine. All right, let's see. I think that's the last comment, and it is. So now let's move on to our final segment of the show. I got one more comment here from LC. Alex just said he was really close and on the doorstep of playing last weekend. Just said that. And we know that to be a fact. But just because you were close last week doesn't mean all of a sudden you're close. It carries over to this week. It'd be one thing if we were dealing with a running back who was dealing with a sprained ankle or, a sore hamstring and he was almost able to go last week. And the assumption is he'll be ready to go next week. We're dealing with a quarterback with a calf that could flare up at any time. And so he could be feeling good now, feeling good, Thursday, and then Friday the calf starts to tighten up on him again. So we really don't know what we're going to do. We'll see what happens. Zachary Managoba says, which of the 10 of 5 AFC teams do you think is best to worst? You know what? That's a perfect transition to where we are going now, which is garbage time. So I wanted to take a look at the Week 17 slate, and I wanted to give you a couple of games that are going to stick out for me and what I ultimately think are going to be the outcomes of these games. Now, I still don't have all the information to make these picks, which is why I'm not doing my picks today, because there are going to be a lot more things that transpire between now and kickoff at 1 p.m. on Sunday that are going to sway me in a direction. And first of all, I want to take the time right now to do this. I want to thank each and every single one of you who participated in winners and losers or participated in the weekly pick'em pool. It's another successful year, and the survivor pool. Let me throw that one in there, even though that one's been over for what seems like an eternity now. Shout out to the winner of that this year, but I think it was Jay Moo who won the survivor pool in like week 9. So that thing's been over for a long time. But winners and losers is coming down to the wire. I got a game lead over my man Sean Mack for the championship crown for the second straight year. I'm looking to go back to back. I want it so bad I can taste it. So I've got to make better picks. I was up 3 games going into week 16, and I did not have a good week. But then again, nobody really had a great week. It was a rough week. No one thought, that the Browns were going to lose, or the Texans were going to lose, or Washington was going to lose. I didn't think that Philly was going to lose to Dallas. They did. So it was not. I had the Raiders. I had the Steelers. Luckily, the Steelers came up big for me, or else it would have been an even worse week. Raiders let me down, but through all of that, I still lead by 1 game, and it's been a ton of fun. I can't imagine a season without having this, format and these pools every single week. I've got to have something on the line. I got to have some kind of rooting interest, which is why you get so much passion out of me. When a team loses a game that I picked, I get pissed off because I told you I'm a sore loser. I want to win. And so that's where you get like the Bears game, for instance, on a Monday night when they lost to Minnesota. The reason I was so pissed off that night, the reason I was so passionate is because I had the Bears, and had they just won the game, I would have won the football pool that week. Now they won me some extra money, and instead they lost, and it pissed me off. So that's why I came up here and I was, ranting and raving. So anyway, I just wanted to take this time to thank each and every single one of you who participated. Put your money where your mouth was. And even if you were just participating just for the spirit of it, because you just want to have some fun, that's great. I appreciate that as well. So I just wanted to thank every single one of those participants. At this point of the season, we are down to week 17, and it's almost over, and a lot of fun again. It's always fun. I enjoy this every year, and I'm hoping to grow it even bigger next year. But I wanted to thank you guys for your participation this season. So with that said, I do want to take a look at week 17 and all of the games that are going to matter and have playoff implications. Again, things are going to change between now and 1 o'clock kickoff on Sunday, so I don't want to give you definitive winners. My picks will be up on the website, as they always are, prior to kickoff, so you'll have a chance to take a look at it there. But there are some strong leans right now for me, teams that I am definitely leaning towards picking on Sunday. And I'm going to give you what I think ultimately is going to happen. Now, some of these I'm going to be definitive on, and you can take it to the bank right now. This is what I'm going to pick because this is what I believe. But obviously, the Packers could come out later in the week and say, you know what, Aaron tweaked something in practice. We just want to play it safe. He's not playing in this game. Well, that changes everything. Now Chicago's definitely winning the game. But if Aaron Rodgers plays, who knows what the hell's going to happen in that game? I still don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think Chicago's hot right now. The Packers don't necessarily need it, but they want the number 1 seed. They don't want to lose that. Seattle has the I think they're playing the 49ers or the Seahawks. Like, they should be the 49ers, I think, have kind of thrown in the towel now with all the injuries. Trent Williams, and they got another guy that's going to be out. But you say that, but then they beat the Cardinals last week. So I don't really know. You don't really know. Anyway, let's wrap this thing up. So I want to start with the AFC side of things because that's, to me, what's the most important right now and the most intriguing. So let's start with the 1 o'clock kickoff games and see what games are going to matter. So you start with the Bills and the Dolphins. Bills are at home, AFC East, family business. You know how to family do it. And I'll tell you what, man, the Bills right now, they win. They're the number 2 seed in the AFC. How much does it matter to you? I surmise that the Bills want it. They do. They want the number 2 seed. They want to go into the playoffs playing at a high level. They have been steamrolling the competition. They don't want this momentum to end. And I think they're going to look to put down the Miami Dolphins, to remain undefeated in the division. They've got a chance to run the table in the division and go 6-0. They swept New England. They've swept the Jets. This is their opportunity to sweep the Dolphins. When's the last time the Bills went 6-0? When's the last time anybody outside of New England went 6-0 in the division? It's the first time that the Patriots have been swept by any team in the AFC East in ages. So, man, I'm going to tell you what, right now, I think that this is why I feel confident. My man Jonathan Hankey was saying, man, I don't like our chances. Here's why I like your chances. I think the Dolphins are going to lose this game. I think the Bills have all this momentum. I don't know what they're going to do. It's hard to say how they decide to approach this thing. But if they decide to play Josh Allen, and let's say John Brown is eligible to come back, and they say, we want John to get some work. We want Smoke to get some work out here. He hasn't played in like a month and some change. I don't see how the Dolphins win this game. So I think the Bills are going to win that game. That's going to give Indianapolis a chance there. The next game that matters is Ravens-Bengals. I really don't need that. This is AFC North family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. I don't really need to explain to you why I feel like this family business is going to be handled relatively easy. I feel like the Ravens know what's at stake. They're in a position now that they weren't in a week ago, which is win and you're in. Last week, they needed help. Well, they got help last week. Plenty of help last week. Now they just got to win and they're in. They didn't come this far to blow it against the Bengals. Okay, they did that, in 2017. They're not doing that again this year. They're going to take care of the Bengals, and I think they're going to put them out of their misery relatively early in that game. Let's stay in that division, though, because we got another game of importance. This one more important than the last. Steelers at Browns. I think this is a game that, the Steelers, they need to win. And I don't think that Ben is playing in this game. Let's find out if Ben's playing in this game. I think I already had heard that Ben was going to be sitting out this game. Let's see if Ben Roethlisberger is playing this week. Ben will not play against the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. Mason Rudolph will get the start. I remember that because there was all of this hoopla about the rematch, revenge game of sorts for Myles Garrett against Mason Rudolph. So Ben's not playing. The Browns should be able to win that football game. Mason Rudolph stinks. Okay? The Browns should be able to win that game. And so even if the Browns win and they finish tied with Baltimore at 11-5, the Ravens swept them. So, by virtue of that, the Ravens would get in over them. But the Browns then beat the Indianapolis Colts. So if they finish at 11-5 and the Browns and the Bengals or the Colts finish at 11-5, the Browns would get in over them. But I think what's ultimately going to decide that last seed, because essentially you've got about, let's call it 6 chairs in the AFC, and they're only 5 seats. Somebody's going to be on the outside looking in. So you got Dolphins 1, Ravens 2, Browns 3, Titans 4, Colts 5. I think that's it. 5 chairs, 4 seats. That's what it is. 5 chairs, 4 seats. Or 4 chairs and 5 participants. Somebody's going to be left without a seat. And I think what it's ultimately going to boil down to is the Ravens will get a seat, the Browns will get a seat, the Titans and the Texans, or the Titans and the Colts will both get seats. And the odd team out will be the Dolphins, because I think they're going to lose to the Bills on Sunday. As you get to the NFC side of things, and let's just finish up the AFC while we're here. Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Colts know what it is. Win, and then you need a little bit of help. I think you'll get it. But win, and then you got to hope for some help. They're going to beat Jacksonville. Texans, Titans, same thing. Win for the Texans or the Titans, and you win the division. You don't need anybody's help. You win, and they're going to take care of business. You win the AFC South division, and the rest is history. You take that 3 seed, you run with it, you're good. You take that 4 seed, and you run with it, you're good. And meanwhile, for the Colts, you got to get a little bit of help, but you got to take care of business first. I surmise that they will, and then I think they'll get in because of a Dolphins loss to the Buffalo Bills. On the NFC side of things, you got Chicago taking on the Green Bay Packers. I've already talked about that game being a massive one for the Bears. Aaron Rodgers should be playing in this game because they still want to hold on to that number 1 seed. So there's a lot at stake in this game. That's probably the second biggest game of the day is Bears and Packers, because I think the biggest game is obviously the one that they put on Sunday night with Washington, because you're winning, you're in, or if you don't, the other team that wins out of the Giants-Cowboys game is going to the playoffs. So, that's a big game from that standpoint. But this game is big for both teams. Packers want the number 1 seed, want the bye week, want the all roads to the Super Bowl in the NFC coming through Lambeau. Meanwhile, the Bears have to win to get in. Now I take that back. They need to win so that they don't have to worry about anybody else taking care of business for them. But if they lose, they could still theoretically get in if Arizona lost again. But I don't think Arizona's going to lose. And speaking of which, let's go to that game. Cardinals Rams. Cardinals 8-7. So are the Bears. Bears own tiebreaker over them. Rams are 9-6. No Jared Goff in this game. They're going to be compromised. No Cooper Kupp. It's not the same Rams team, but the same Rams defense will show up, and that should be problematic for Kyler Murray, who's dealing with a leg injury of his own. Got leg whipped on the final snap of the game versus San Francisco. He's a little hobbled, but he's going to go, and he should be good enough to help them win. But don't count out the Rams defense showing up and helping them win this game, because this Cardinals offense has shown us they could go to sleep. They can be put to bed. So no guarantees there, but I think when it's all said and done, I think the Bears are going to beat the Packers, somehow, some way. I think they're going to get it done, and they're going to find themselves in the playoffs. That's fascinating, though, because the Cardinals could easily win and get in. And then, obviously, you got the 2 NFC East showdowns, Cowboys-Giants, which is far from a showdown in my eyes. 1 o'clock kick. Giants, they're a mess offensively. Defensively, I think they're going to give themselves a chance against Dallas, but they're a mess offensively. There's no way Dallas doesn't score enough to beat them. Even if the offense is struggling throughout the game, the Giants, unless Dallas's defense reverts back to what they were a month and a half ago, unless they revert back to that, they're going to beat the Giants. The Giants haven't scored, 20 plus since, I think, the last time they saw Washington. I'm gonna go hunt that down. I think the last time they've scored 30 or 20 plus was the last time they saw Washington. Let's see. That Washington game was week number 11, I think, week 10 or so. Nope, they've scored it again. Nope, I was right, because that Buccaneers game was right before the Washington game. Nope, they scored it the week after. I take that back. I apologize. They scored it in week number 12 against Philly. They scored 27. Then they scored 19 against the Bengals, 17 against the Seahawks, 7 against the Cardinals, 6 against the Browns, 13 against the Ravens. They haven't scored 20 in almost 2 months. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In almost a month and a half, they haven't scored 20 points. So I just don't see it happening. Their offense is anemic. I'll take the Cowboys offense in that game to score enough. Unless that Cowboys defense from earlier in the season shows up, they should be able to win the game. And then finally, Sunday night game, Washington Eagles. I'll have a breakdown for that, of course, on the channel. I just know that this is not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. I don't like this spot for Washington. Doesn't mean I don't think they will win, but I don't love this spot for Washington at all whatsoever. But, they responded well to adversity this year. When they've been put in these tough, compromising situations, when people have doubted them, they've responded well. So they're 2-0 on primetime, this year. And so let's see if they can't make it a clean 3-0. It's a new day in Washington. Ron Rivera's here, and all of the things that we fear, maybe we don't need to worry about because Ron Rivera's here. I don't know. We'll see. But that's going to do it for me. Your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me on this one and only podcast of the week. The next time we see one another, it will be 2021 here on the Louie T Network podcast. And I'd be lying to you if I said I was going to be sad to see that last O go in the date. So looking forward to chopping it up with you guys with a brand new year, different month, all of that good jazz. I got a lot to talk about too. I got a lot of stuff I got to get off my chest. So we'll do that at some point on the podcast once everything has been straightened up. But until then, we got a lot of football that will transpire between then and now when we speak next time. And we'll have a lot to talk about. We'll be looking at the playoffs. We'll know who is in all 14 participants in the two conferences combined. We will know all of the matchups. We'll be able to talk about all of those things. So this will be one of the more, memorable Week 17s I can remember in recent history, because normally there are about 3 or 4 games that really have a massive impact on the standings and playoff seeding and things of that nature. I just went through the list of games, and there's 16 games on the slate, as you know, when all 32 teams played 16 games. Of the 16 games, you're probably looking at half. That's not the case. That's not a normal Week 17 where half of the games matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of the 16 games have playoff implications where if a team loses, they could be out. If a team wins, they could be in, or they'll impact other teams trying to get in. So this is massive. It's going to be a great day of football. Bart Scott, can't wait. In any event, I'm going to get out of here. I thank you guys for joining me. Start preparing for my show later, Washington Football Nightly. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support that you've shown me in 2020 with this podcast. It's grown exponentially. And if you're out there and you're listening to this via, one of the streaming apps, whether it's, Google Music Play, or I think they changed it to Google Player. I don't know what the hell they changed it to. If you're listening to this on Google or Apple Podcasts or TuneIn or Spotify or Stitcher or whatever you may be listening to this on, I'm going to be more vigilant in uploading these things. I'm almost all the way caught up, and I will have a much better system next year. So when this thing goes out, you'll have it. You won't have to wait a week or 3 days or 5 days or any other nonsense that I did to you this year at the end. You're going to get this when you're supposed to get it. I promise you. Okay. So after the year turns and I get a fresh slate and a clean bill of health with Libsyn, we're going to hit the ground running and we're not going to look back. I promise you. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side and allow you guys to enjoy the rest of your evening. If you're a Washington fan, hopefully I will see you later for Washington Football Nightly. For those of you who are not, hopefully I will see you on Sunday. We will have a ton of football to talk about. But all we'll want to talk about that night is Washington and hopefully them clinching a playoff berth. If they don't, we will be bitching about how they did not get it done versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Either way, it will be a lot of Washington talk. So the next time we'll be talking about all teams will be here on this podcast on Monday, January the 4th, I guess it would be. Whatever that Monday is. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T. You guys take care. If you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also hit that like button if you haven't already done that. It's 140 of you out there, only 65 likes. Let's get that thing up to 70. Get it to 80, all right? I really appreciate you guys. Until next time, you guys take care. Stay safe. And Happy New Year's to you and yours. Be blessed. Till next time.